So municipal elections are 8 days away, and there's a candidate in Layton who is facing not only his opponent, but 4 misdemeanor charges. Trevor Lee Foust, 44-year-old Layton resident, who is scheduled, he's on the ballot to be Layton's mayor next week, but he's also facing 4 charges as a result of a domestic violence incident that occurred allegedly on July 9th of this year with his wife, and he's charged there in Layton City, by Layton City, which he would be overseeing, the very prosecutors that are charging him, with 4 Class B misdemeanors, threat of violence, and 3 charges of domestic violence in the presence of a child, meaning he must have had 3 children at the house at the time that this, whatever happened, was occurring.
So you're looking at the charges directly, right?
Right, yes.
I'm looking at a story from the Salt Lake Tribune about this, and one of the things that they're saying is his attorney, I guess, is saying that he's going to have the charges dismissed. He's pleaded not guilty, and that there's the wife is wanting to change her statement now.
Yeah, and in fact she has. So she filed, and I went into the court docket to see if I could find it, but I didn't, and so it must be sealed. Apparently she filed a signed, notarized statement to correct her previous statement, and she's now claiming that what she's saying is that children did not hear or witness any of the threatening behavior. So that would be 3 of the 4 counts. The domestic violence in the presence of the child.
So it would still leave 1.
Well, right. But then she says, but I also want the charge dismissed. So the thing about children in the presence, domestic violence in the presence of a child, is that they don't have to be physically present. The law is pretty loosey-goosey on that. For example, if you're having a fight upstairs and the kids are all asleep in the basement, you can be charged and you can be convicted of domestic violence in the presence of a child. So in the presence of means they shouldn't even have to experience that or be, present for the noise or something like that, because we know what that does to children. But then there's the threat of violence, the underlying domestic violence charge. You have to have an underlying charge before you can get to the domestic violence in the presence of a child. So those are the 4 counts that he's facing. Now, his attorney's saying it's going to be dismissed, but the election is November 4th?
It's November 4th, a week from tomorrow.
His next court date is November 25th.
Yeah.
So it's unlikely this case will be dismissed before
the election.
Which I think has got to make it hard for the voters to decide what to do. And of course he's presumed innocent, and I appreciate that. But it's going to be awkward. And then let's say he wins. Then he is overseeing the very prosecutors who are prosecuting him. He would be their boss, so to speak.
So my assumption would be then, and you're the legal expert, wouldn't it change jurisdiction then? Wouldn't there be something if the case were to continue?
Yeah, what I think would happen is, and I believe Layton's in Davis County, and Roy's in Weber. I get them mixed up. But the Davis County Attorney's Office would almost certainly take over the case. Troy Rawlings and his people would probably look at it and say, okay, we'll take it over from Layton City, which is the current prosecutor. Right. So it's not a county case because it's a mid-level misdemeanor, and misdemeanors at that level can be prosecuted by local cities. In fact, they're usually done in the justice court, but they don't have one in that jurisdiction. So they're doing it in the district court. This is stuff we don't really need to know, but it talks about we could talk about how the court works. But the Davis County Attorney's Office could prosecute in either court, and so I would assume that if he's elected, to get away from any appearance of impropriety or conflict of interest, he would have an independent prosecuting agency handle the case. Otherwise, the city attorney is going to say, I can't prosecute this guy. He's going to set my budget, my salary.
So a couple of questions that I have. One is how often does it happen that victims or alleged victims of domestic violence want to change their reporting or their contacting of police? How often does that happen?
More than not. I mean, it's fortunate or unfortunate, but it's not uncommon at all in domestic violence situations, Holly, when you see a situation come up, one spouse will call and say, hey, there's a problem going on, I need the police. And then 2 or 3 weeks later, they're back together saying, I don't want to pursue this case. This is not what I wanted. And some people just are mistaken as to what the police obligation is. They'll call the police, let's say
Right.
my husband was really upset. I just wanted just a sort of a calming thing. Police don't come to calm.
Right.
They come to stop something, and that almost always requires, especially under the new Utah law, that they hook somebody up and take him or her out of the home. So domestic violence is looked at pretty strictly by police, and we know about the lethality assessment that they're required to do now too.
Yeah.
So, but again, to answer your question, it's more often than not that a domestic violence victim will come in and say, I don't want to pursue these charges.
Yeah.
And Utah has a law, and I'm not giving legal advice here, but we have what's called the marital privilege, which provides that a spouse cannot be compelled to testify against their spouse under certain circumstances, including this. So if she said, I am absolutely not going to testify, I don't want anything to do with your case.
Yeah.
And it's hard to tell from this affidavit that she signed because she just wants the charges dismissed. Does that mean I'm also not going to participate? She may have the right to do that. So that puts the state in a difficult position because how do you prove a case if you don't have a witness?
You know, it reminds me of the case in Tremont that where the 2 police officers were killed. Police had responded multiple times to domestic violence calls, including one that was, I think, at least could have been charged as a felony, but then she said she had changed her mind and she wasn't going to pursue those charges. But now that her husband has been arrested and is sitting in jail, she has said, I want to revisit that incident, and I will cooperate with you. It's one of the things I think that's when you have domestic violence issues and now you have an election, just so you know, elections are nonpartisan. And so in Layton, the top 2 vote getters go to the ballot. And this person came through in the number 2 position after the primary in August, and he's running against the incumbent mayor who came out on top. So we'll see how that all plays out, but it can be complicated.
So if the primary was after July 9th, and I have to assume it was, then this charge was pending then too, and the voters would probably have been aware of that.
I don't know if they were or not,
right,
but the primary was August 10th.
Good. Yeah, well, it would have been fairly recent after that. And again, he's presumed innocent. Who knows what happened? And if his wife says she wants to back out, it may be likely that the state or the city will end up dismissing the charges, but it's unlikely that that'll occur between now and Tuesday.
Right, since the next court date's not until the end of November.
So if you're a voter, you're looking at this going, well, I don't know. I mean,
right.
The presumption of innocence maintains, but again, you're
and his attorney says he is confident that all charges will be dismissed.
Right. Yeah.